This is the first time I've shot some video from my room. I'm usually in a hotel room. But anyway, we finally get to do the speed bump myth, which has bothered me ever since I first started hearing about it. Let's first of all, what is the speed bump? And so this is the sharpening bevel or primary bevel on your axe. And this part right here, that's the speed bump. Now, I don't know who was the first one to ever call it a speed bump, but I didn't think it would really have that much difference or significance. And I was wrong in thinking it didn't matter. But that's the speed bump, and what they want you to do is grind that down. One YouTuber will say something, and other YouTubers hear it. They respect the authority of the person who said it. Now they say it, and they don't question it. It's just true. And the speed bump theory was one of them. Now, the speed bump theory bothers me because if you take off this point, if you take off the speed bump, you're leveling this out and you're giving wood more opportunity to be in contact with the metal. So if you have a flat-sided axe, you just exposed all of it to the wood, which will clamp on it like you'll put it in a wood vise. And you've probably experienced this because, I have. You stick it into the wood and it is just like the wood sandwiched it. It's under compression because the wood doesn't want the axe there. The wood's trying to close back. You maximize the contact of metal surface area to the wood to let it hold on. Not only does it hold on and become sticky and it won't let you get it back, it also won't let you penetrate as far. And I know that from personal experience because out in the Grove, when I'm cutting down those dead red pine snags, I have reported before, if I use a very thin jersey, like council tool jerseys, that big wide bit, that gigantic tall face, and very thin, it's a 1/4 inch thin, almost halfway back on the blade still, and then put a really keen edge on it, you can't tell the axe is sharp because it's like you hit a water bed with a baseball bat. There's almost no penetration. But then try to pull the axe back out. You may have sunk it in that far and you're pulling it, trying to get it back out. We want that speed bump to create an abrupt separation of surface area of the metal side of the axe to the wood. When you take the speed bump off, you're losing that benefit. You are increasing the surface area that's in contact with the wood. We need to stop people from spreading this myth because it's harmful. I think after you see the demonstration, if you've done this to your axe, you'll wish you hadn't have, and you definitely won't be advising other people to do it, because what you've done to the axe is not easily undone. It will take substantial grinding off of your bit to try to get the bump back, and you're going to want it back. And there's a couple of different ways I can try to persuade people that that's true. That's just a theory, okay? For me, it's a pretty sound theory. It makes sense. You're reducing the drag. I don't want the drag from massive contact of metal to wood. That will slow my penetration down and it'll make it very hard to retrieve. So I'll go less deep and spend more energy trying to pull it back. Cue in Rod Cumberland, East Coast Lumberjack. It was, I watch his channel quite a bit. I got a lot of respect for him. I get a kick out of him. I like his sense of humor. Seriously got some credentials. I went to his channel to search it, looking for had he ever addressed this topic, and a month ago he posted one. Well, it was included in one of his episodes, and he addressed it, and he is very clear, definitively clear. Don't do that. Don't take that speed bump off. You're shooting yourself in the foot. You're losing efficiency. And I was elated because if you have somebody of his caliber and you find out that, oh my, thank God, we agree. Because I would be uncomfortable being in a disagreement with somebody at his level. On the other hand, in the same episode, he takes out his little Makita sander. He does the U.S. Forest Service thing where he does the bevel. on that shortened radius, makes a tighter arc. And at first I was like, oh no, we disagree on this. But then I realized, no, we come from different perspectives. He comes from, and I misspoke in it, he comes from a performance-driven perspective on axes, and chopping in particular. I would say that Buck and Billy raised the splitter, Rod Cumberland is the chopper. And when you watch his videos, look at the back wall. Look at how many trophies are on that wall. The guy knows what he's talking about. And you would do well to listen to him. I will put links to more of his stuff because, like I said, I don't want to repeat what other people have done. I'd like to put up original stuff. I put up either one of two things. I'm looking for an answer and can't find it, so if I have to work really hard to find an answer for something, I'm just going to share it with you. Or it's bunk, and I want to debunk it. And so I went off to debunk the speed bump advice, get rid of it. Found out that Rod had already addressed it on East Coast Lumberjack. And then thought, well, that doesn't stop me because I'm still going to demonstrate it. So all of that weight and all of that drive from the axe is only driving that much through the wood. For the most part, it's going to come in contact higher up. But I want as much surface area out of contact as possible. So one of my favorite analogies to use, and it's going to be weak. The problem with an analogy is that it's not a true comparison. Analogies, an illustrative example. And so I'm going to take this, and then of course I don't have the right one. I call it my cheese cutter theory. And I'll just demonstrate it pretty quick. I may have dogs coming into the door right away, because when I open the wrapper, they magically know we've got cheese out. So I'll pull this out. It's going to make a mess. I'm in the bedroom, and I got cheese out. I'll leave it on the wrapper. All right. Now, when I do the cheese, this is what we're talking about. I take this, and I'm only going to pass a wire through it. Behind the wire, there's nothing in contact with the cheese. It goes right through, just like that. And like I said, now my dogs will come. Okay? So that comes off pretty easy. Now this is a very sharp knife. This is a Miracle Blade 3 chop and scoop. I'm telling you, I'm a cheap guy. You know, I buy stuff at rummage sales and whatever. But I'm telling you, this little sucker is so handy because you chop up your vegetables and then you can scoop them up. I just use it constantly. Okay, sharp as it is. Very, very sharp. Let's see what happens. Can I cut this cheese as easily as I did with the... No, I'm stopped. I am pushing down this hard. I don't know if you can see it kind of bulging. I stopped. Obviously, the cheese is adhering to the blade. See? This is ridiculously sharp. That's not sharp. That's a stupid wire. But the wire can pass through the cheese because there's nothing behind it causing drag. This, that's drag. That's done. It ain't going anywhere. All right. Set that aside. Now, the analogy will have trouble convincing people because, guess what? Wood ain't cheese. Axes are not wires. So as great an illustration as I think that was, you know, I'm a genius. That was brilliant. That was wonderful. Some people will say like, well, I bet that's not true of wood. Would it be true of hardwood? Get yourself some aged Gouda. Can you get that carving knife to go through it? Well, I like aged Gouda, so yeah, that's a much harder cheese, and I can get a carving knife to go through that. I don't need a wire. In fact, well, there you go. See, now it would be like wood, wouldn't it? Wood is not cheese. It's not soft like cheese. It's not sticky like cheese. And I said, honey, when you slap a metal wedge into wood, that wood don't like it. It wants to close. And so you've basically taken a metal wedge and put it in a vise, a wood vise. Now, it's very easy for that wood to clamp on there when you give it lots of surface area to do that. So we have to go to another. The theory isn't working for you. The analogy of the cheese didn't work for you. So now what? Demonstration. Oh boy, this is going to be hard to demonstrate, isn't it? Wow. Consider all the variables. I don't want to take two different axes. Yeah, obviously, you do that. You would say, here's one axe, and I'm going to leave the speed bump. Now we're going to change it, because remember I said that's a sudden break in the angle? And we're interrupting contact with the wood right away. East Coast Lumberjack taught me a new word for that in that episode. He called it the bust. He said, in the circles that he runs in, the name for this is bust. They don't call it speed bump. They call it the bust. That's its job. Break that connection. Bust the chips out. Get the axe back out of there. All right. So I'd have one axe where I left that on. I'd do them to the same angle. I'd take another axe and I would take it off. Simple, huh? Well, if you have two different axes, you introduce variables again. I don't know that they're the same. If I bought the two same axes, and I would have to hit them side by side. I don't know. You have to work with one, then you pick up another one. Are the handles the same? My axes, I think, are each of them is unique, because the handle that I chose for it, the head style that it is. I have some that are the same, but because I have mostly vintage axes, they're not really the same. Even the council tool axes I got. Unable to open my eyes, or I'll get soap in my eyes. It dawns on me, I just stop and double bit. Use a double bit. One side, do both sides identical. Then on one side, take the bust off. On the other side, leave it. You can flip that in your hand while you're working. You can go cut, flip, cut, and see if there's a difference. I had an axe, coincidentally, it needed to be reprofiled. It was a turd. I used to convex my bits because that was the recommendation from the U.S. Forest Service. But the convex bit, although it's the most robust of the bits, it's also the worst performing. And so I will reprofile this double bit, and I'll get that ready for the demonstration. The only problem is, this one is one of my, what some people call the primitive head. It's all pitted and stuff. And I brought it back, so it's got that nice black and silver pitting, and it's gorgeous to look at. Like I said, it doesn't perform worth a toot. And the problem was, I can't get a definitive line. I can't show the bust. And this is going to be totally unconvincing. I may actually notice an effect when I get out there, but you're not going to trust that. I'm not even going to remember which side had the bust on it because I can't see it. So I gave up on that. And then the other problem was, this is a vintage head. It has the side bevels. Now side bevels, like I was showing before, that's side bevels. Oops, I didn't see it. Okay, we're gonna take this out. Not cut it out. We're gonna scallop this so that this is shallower than this. We're gonna leave this alone. Now, as it enters wood, these portions that I just did, let me color them in, took them out of play. Wood can't grab them. And this part is still wedging the wood apart. So you get maximum penetration, you don't lose any wedging ability, and you're able to get your axe back because the wood is not holding this. Imagine MC Hammer and parachute pants. You can't touch this. That's what this bust should be doing. It should be protecting this part back here from contact with the wood. Darn it. All people who love axes, they hate to be in this position. I gotta buy another axe. Ran down to the hardware store, and there was one I was always curious about. I have bought a couple of Collins. It is the Collins name. It is not the Collins reputation, for sure. Not Collins quality. This is not the Collins pre-1966. And what I like about it is it takes away one of the variables. It doesn't have the side bevels, this one is flat. So that won't interfere. The only thing that's going to happen on this axe is it's going to have the bust. I'm going to take it off. I'm going to do it to the same on both sides. I want to aim for 25. Here's the other variable. All right. What's going to have the most dramatic demonstration of this principle? What if I have a very wedgy, this would be top-down view. So this would be your hole for your handle. What if I have a very wedgy profile and I put my sharpening bevel on it? Well, how much of a speed bump is that? So that's not going to have much effect, is it? Whether I take it off on one side, let's take that off. Take it off on one side of the axe, but on the other side, when I do the other side, I leave it. I don't notice there's going to be much difference there. Now, what if I've got kind of a thin-bladed axe and I put my sharpening bevel on? Well, I get a much better break right here. The bust is going to be more pronounced. And the same is true as if I had a very thick blade and I did a very blunt, like, what is that, 45 degrees, 90 degrees inclusive? Oh, it's more than 90. So it's 100 degrees inclusive there. That would be an incredibly significant bust if I did that one. Okay? So that's going to matter. All right? Now I'm going to shoot for 25 degrees. And this is what I'm going to get. Both sides are going to be 23.5 degrees inclusive. The sharpening bevel is going to come up not quite 3/4, 5/8 of an inch up the side. And then I'm going to take it down on the other side. Another variable. Let me draw you an angle here. I'm going to exaggerate the angle. All right. So this one has very pronounced bust. I want to take down the bust. Do I take it down that much? Just knock off the corner? Do I take off 1/8 of an inch? Do I round it over completely like that? Now that's going to be pretty significant. And what difference is it going to make? It makes a difference. How much are you allowing the wood to return to the surface, to the contact with the surface of the axe? Maintain or regain contact with the surface of the axe. So if you leave it on here as a sharp angle, that's a very clean separation. The more you take it down, the worse it should get. You would imagine that if you took the bust off like that, you're pretty much just keeping it. So that's a dramatic difference between the side with the bust on it. Oh, not third variable. But there's another thing. Somebody said, like, well, then you're convexing the bit. No, it's similar, but here's the difference. Let me draw. Okay, can you see this? Okay, on the top one, that's a convexed bit. And that means that the front of the bit is bullet shaped. See how it's bullet shaped? See it bulges out there and around here? And you can see why that would be a very durable edge. It's very difficult to deform that point when you've got this much shoulder behind it, buttressing it up. But it also means that's very difficult to try to push through wood because you don't have any sharp angle. You've got a blunt, bullet-shaped angle. But bullets go through wood. If you get enough power behind it, you'll get it to go. And then there's this one is what we're talking about. I want to take that bump off. So this is going to be flat. The cutting edge is going to be very, very sharp. And remember when we talked about sharp and keen, sharp means the cutting ability of the angle on the bevel. And we're only talking about, I want to round this part off. I want to smooth that off. Okay, that's what we're testing. I got to stress, what you see being demonstrated is true for this axe in this wood on this day swung by this axeman. Okay? It doesn't mean you're going to have the exact same results, but it will illustrate the principles that we're talking about. Oh man, I was surprised. I didn't think it made that much difference. Watch.
Okay, let's go. Now, this part you'll remember from the preview. I went out to the stump and I was just shocked. It is clearly evident that the part I took the bust off, it sticks in there and won't come out. I actually thought I was going to break the handle. I didn't know it would be this dramatic a difference. Oh my. It won't let go, and as a corollary, it's also not going as deep. Okay, now I'm out at the tree dump. I'm in the middle, actually, of the tree dump. I'm surrounded. There's nobody that can come back in here, and I'm not bothering anybody in the middle here. And I'm surrounded by different kinds of wood and just a lot of wood. I am testing the bust side here for what kind of penetration am I getting. I'm not quite to the label. In most of the hits, it's about 3.5. It's 3 on that one. There's one where I get 4. The other ones are 3.5. And then I'll flip it over and do the rest of the log. I'm just kind of going down a couple inches at a time, further and further down the log, testing penetration. Now, angle of attack is going to matter here. I'm trying for 45 degrees. If I go shallower, it will appear that it went deeper, and all it did was slide down the grain farther. It was easier to go that way. And if it's too vertical, it will have a harder time crossing the grain. On this side where I took the bust off, generally I'm getting 3. On one of them, I think I did get 3.5, but that was really shallow cut. What is very obvious is it's a struggle to get it out of that side. There's no bust there. It's all in contact with the wood. And that looks impressive, except, of course, that's a really low angle of attack. It's just sliding down the grain of the wood. Makes it look like you did a better job than it did. Now I actually get kind of sloppy here, but what I'm checking is to see, does one side chip better than another? And shortcut here is I never noticed that to be true throughout the day. It didn't seem to chip better. If it did, it was just too insignificant or too imperceptible to me. Maybe it did. I don't think it had much to do with it. I would think the chipping has more to do with the basic pattern itself. Now, one thing I wish I could have done was lay that log down. That's about knee high. It's on a bunch of branches up there. So that it's elevated that high off the ground, I noticed I have a little bit of control issue in how I'm swinging it. Those glances have nothing to do with our test. That's just me being out of control. I wanted so bad to edit that out. You don't know how bad I wanted to get rid of that. But this is honest. I'm not going to cut. And can you tell? I can't tell. To me, it looked like that was coming off the head as it came down to the wood, that it didn't come off in the wood. I think it would have stuck if it came off in the wood. It looked like it was flying off the handle just before it landed. Let's try seeing if we can skip it. There goes one. That was no bust. Bust. Now what I'm doing here is I'm slowly increasing the angle until it bites. Bust. So that's pretty shallow. And this is the side that has no bust. Almost. So it caught okay. The angle just a little bit. Now I've got to eventually turn the log because what's happening is it'll catch the other cuts. So I need a nice slick bark place again. Try it again. This will be bust. Now see, that's pretty low angle. I'm going to let you look at it right here. I'm going to try to duplicate the angle with the no bust side. Now I play with this for a little bit because someone had a question about will the bust make it glance more. I'm not noticing any difference. And again, I think that's because it's a 23.5 degree angle on both sides. It's entering the wood at the same angle, whether it's got a bust or not. So I don't think the bust has anything to do with any propensity for glancing. I just don't think it's a factor. It's a very shallow angle. What do you think about that? Very shallow. Let's see if I can do that again. It's a similar angle. Would you say that's about the same angle? So I don't see a difference when it comes to that. Now I'm very interested in this. I'm switching over to some soft pine. What will that do compared to ash? I imagine it'll be much worse. And it's not as bad as what I had anticipated. Or check that. It's not as bad chopping it as I would have anticipated. But in the end grain, it's almost burst out laughing because the bust side would fall out of the wood, and I would have to put my foot up and pry out the no bust side. It's distinctly different. try here. Bust. No bust. Stuck. Try it again. Alright, no bust. Bust. Bust comes out easy. Roll it, try it again. Bust. Wow. No bust. No bust. Bust. Okay. No bust. The no bust side. Oh, this is the bust side. Let's try the no bust side. Bust. Let's try bust.
Ya estaba empezando a echar hojas, güey. Y esas las otras el aire se las tumbó. Olvídate, todos le echaron a los árboles este año.
Put this somewhere. I'm not so worried about it. Hear that hand? Didn't move at all. Okay, that's pine. There's a knot. Let's see what we can do. Okay, the wind noise is so bad that even though I'm trying to explain it to you as I'm working, I'm just gonna go ahead and narrate over it. What I'm noticing here, this is very dry pine. And I don't know, it was about 14 inches. They're a little more than 12 inches for sure. I don't think they're 16. Now I'm in. If you wonder where I'm at a community tree dump. I'm in the middle of a giant donut. I had worked my way back in there and found out there's a big opening in there, and I can just turn in a circle and I have access to all this wood. Okay, so I'm splitting this wood. This is very different than the green wood. I'm sinking the axe in there so far that the bust is really not a factor. What's happening is the head is going so far into it that I'm already at the eye. So when this goes, I'm looking for a crack on the top. I'm trying to go between the knots, and you see I'm up to the eye already. So if the entry was affected by the bust, it happens so quick, I can't tell that it did because I'm already in the eye in both sides. Now, because I go just as deep in both sides, I'm thinking that the bust was not a factor in splitting dry pine. So again, it's this axe, those bevels, this wood on this day. It was not making a difference. So it doesn't have an advantage in every application, but there was not a single application where taking the bust off was a benefit. It either didn't factor in a couple of applications, or it was a huge, very noticeable difference in all other applications. Don't file your bust down. Don't take out the so-called speed bump. My summary, I want to begin with the disclaimer. If you tried to duplicate this test, I don't expect you to have exactly the same result. What's the axe that you are using? What was the bevel you put on? How far did you take the bust out on one side? What wood are you chopping on what day? This would have been a different test if it were 10 degrees out. And how long has the wood been sitting there? Has it rained recently? Even what's the humidity on that day? But that said, if you duplicate this test, I'm confident you'll discover, as I did, you get superior penetration on the bust side. It requires less effort to remove the axe from the wood on the bust side. I don't know that it makes a difference in small wood, but in larger log, like the wood I was chopping on this day. If the wood is large enough to take the whole bit, the bust side will outperform the side you take the bust off from. When it came to wedging out chips when you were bucking, not a lot of noticeable difference. I didn't focus enough on that. I was still checking on penetration. But penetration in bucking, of course, points went to the side where you left the so-called speed bump, the bust, in. The no bust side was stickier. When it came to glancing, I think that because they're both ground to 25.5 degrees, and it is a good 1/2 inch to 5/8 inch before you get to that curvature where you were taking out the speed bump on that other side, you're pretty well established in a bite before the speed bump ever figures in. So I did not notice that the bump did or any better than, or what did any worse than the no bust side when it came to glancing. When it comes to splitting, in the green wood, impossible. It was so sticky. In the dry wood, not a factor because you're swinging so deep into that, it's grabbing the whole head. So the bust doesn't factor in. So in conclusion, I want to say it's not a light topic. I'm serious about this. We need to spread the word. The speed bump is a myth. Do not advise people to take that down. You are telling them to do something they can't undo very easily, and they're going to regret that they did it if they see a video like this. If you have an axe where you've taken your speed bump off, I'm sorry. You're in a situation like me. Case in point, what am I supposed to do with this axe now? I've got one side I don't like. I can't use it. I've seen what a turd it is. For me to reestablish that bust, I will have to grind off a significant amount of bit and probably steepen it, which I'd do for a Collins anyway. Not looking forward to that. On the other hand, I could leave it the way it is and rent it out to you people who want to test this for yourself. I mean, I do always say, don't take my word for it. Get out there and experience it for yourself. The only thing you've got to lose is significant performance off your axe.